Big boy. Whew. This is, you know, this is just as advertised. This is a fat boy. And that's what we're riding today. The 2021 Harley-Davidson Fat Boy. Fat boy. And right off the bat, oh, this boy is chunky. Chunky fat boy. Sorry, I can't help but smile because, I mean, talking about living up to the name, when you look at this bike at address or whatever you want to call this, as you sit here on this bike, you look at this giant headlight, and it's just a big boy, or a fat boy, if you will. A fat boy with a 114 cubic inch Milwaukee 8 engine. Now, one thing I will note, I've ridden the Fat Boy Low and a standard Fat Boy of days past, when it was, I believe it was I think it was a soft tail. It still was a soft tail, but we're talking about 2013 and older. And those bikes, you definitely had this and if you'll know what I'm talking about, if you know, when I say it, is you felt like you were riding in the bike and not on the bike. You were sitting inside of a cockpit and that you're riding that bike. This one, not so much so. It really feels more like you're sitting on top. Not, you know, not like a bad thing that you're sitting on top, but just less like you're sitting in the bike. Now, this is a fat boy. This is 100. This is a 700-pound fat boy, and so it's a heavy bike. And like I said, when you look at it, it looks like it's this big, chunky, fat, heavy bike, but it does not feel that way. I'm going to tell you from first-hand experience as I ride it right now, it doesn't feel like a big old honking fat boy. But lots of chrome, and you guys, this is something that people will talk about. Might be debated, I don't know, but they went from the satin finish back to the chrome finish, and I personally, I like chrome when it's appropriate, but I really liked the satin finish when the Softail Fat Boy came out in 2018. The chrome, you know, it looks good, it looks okay, but to me, chrome harkens to motorcycles of days past, and I want to get past that. I think those bikes have a place, and I love classic motorcycles, but this isn't a classic motorcycle. This is a 2021, and there's a lot of chrome on this bike, so it's a debatable thing. If you like chrome, this is your bike. If you don't, then maybe find a used 2020 with the satin finish. And of course, you've got the classic big fat disc wheels, which is highlighted because you only got a front disc brake on a single side. Ride height here, I think, is just around 26 inches. So if you're a shorter person like I am, you're going to enjoy a shorter ride height. My inseam is about 30 inches, and I mean, if you can see here on both sides, even as fat as this bike is, I can completely flat foot this bike. Now we're going to get on it. Woo! All right. Now they're moving out of the way. Thank you very much. So I will say, if you're somebody new to riding, you're kind of eyeballing the Fat Boy, you're like, ooh, I really like the look of that bike, considering buying it as maybe a first or second motorcycle, and you think 114 cubic inches, that's a big bike. 700 pounds, that's a big bike. I'm here to tell you, even though this bike is 700 pounds and has a butt ton of power for a cruiser, it's totally manageable. The power on this bike is linear, so even though we took off like a slingshot on that on-ramp, this power is manageable. So no worries there. I mean, this bike is so comfortable. This front headlight, I would say, kind of acts like a fairing, in that it's not blowing, it's blowing the air, I think, just around me, so that it's not hitting me straight in the chest. It's really manageable, and having been on a couple different bikes today on the same stretch of road in the same weather, this feels really nice. If you're thinking about maybe slapping a windshield on here because you're worried about the wind hitting you and not being able to manage that as you ride here on the highway, this is totally manageable and a very comfortable ride. This seat is plush. It's very soft. If you're somebody who likes a firmer seat for longer rides, because you know you might hit the bottom of that seat eventually because it's so soft, and then it's not so comfortable. I can tell you that it feels firm enough, but also very cushy. You've got floorboards on this bike, as you can see there, and no heel shifter. I think that's something that you can add, but it's just got the toe shifter. Very easy to manage. Like I said, I got a 30-inch inseam, 5'6", and this bike fits me really well. I mean, if I'm going out on a limb here and saying it fits me like a glove. You know, if I was taller, my knees would be up higher, but I really like this riding position, and it's very comfortable, and I could see me riding this way for hours and hours. You know, it's not so distracting how wide this bike is. It's got a 5-gallon tank, and I think at about 47 miles per gallon, you're gonna make it a ways before you have to stop and fill up. Handling wise, getting on the freeway at speed and trying to take that on-ramp turn, you know, I won't say that it was difficult, but riding a new bike, you kind of have to get used to it. You know, there's always that worry that you're going to scrape the floorboard or the peg. So, you know, there's always that. But for a 700-pound large bike, this bike is I'm going to say for this bike, it's pretty nimble. Especially in this riding positions with your feet forward on these forward controls on the footboards, and not having any riser and or handlebar riser. I know people will like to do that as well, but I personally, I like this riding position just the way it is stock. I like it a lot. You know, you don't have to get the big ape hangers, and you don't have to get a huge riser on here, but just maybe a little bit if you're taller, so you don't have to lean so far forward. That might help you out. Take this turn a little bit better. Oh yeah. Woohoo! Okay, so that 114, when you open it up, I would say it's not as torquey, and maybe it's just because of the riding position with having your handles up higher as the Street Bob. And you're in a little less aggressive positioning as the Fat Bob, but it still gets on it. It still gets on it real nice. Not so much that you feel like you're just going to get bucked off of your motorcycle, but just enough. And like I mentioned before, the power is linear, so this isn't something where you're like, oh man, I got to worry about how much throttle I give it. You know, it's linear, so however much throttle you give it, however little throttle you give it, that's how fast you're going to go. And you don't have to worry about a little touch of the throttle jerking you forward. That exhaust, it's got a 2 and a 2, I believe, and it's got a nice sound. It's pretty much that classic Harley sound, and obviously if you're going to throw on some new pipes, that was wide. There's gravel in that little turn, and every time I've taken it today, I've taken it very cautiously. So coming out of that turn, I'm just rolling on the throttle nice and easy, and this power is just absolutely manageable. If you're thinking about this bike, it's not too much to handle. Of course, there's stage 1, stage 2, all the way up to whatever number Harley goes up to now. Stage 4, I think, is it. But you can add kits to this bike to give it some more oomph if that's what you want. But if you want it, I mean, this bike, Harley's, especially if you're looking at a CVO, you're gonna pay a pretty penny. You're gonna pay a pretty penny anyway. This bike starts at about $20,000, And then, you know, if you're gonna add anything on, I think this bike comes standard with ABS, no traction control, which, you know, to me, it's like, this bike is a $20,000 bike. I'm not sure why traction control and the new Harley, I think it's RDRS, reflexive defensive riding system, doesn't come standard. Maybe they'll decide to throw that in standard in the next couple of years, but for now, that's not something I don't believe is standard on the Fat Boy. But if it is available, I'll have that on the screen for you. But just nice and comfortable. I mean, it's the suspension here in the front and in the rear makes it riding on these country roads that are not, you know, they're not the best roads here in Northern California. Nice and smooth. And that's important, right? To have that nice cushy suspension in the rear, to take that the shock absorbency out of your spine and to absorb that all in that monoshock rear suspension. It's a big deal. Okay, so for a shorter guy, 5'6", 30-inch inseam. My leg is rubbing up here against the air cleaner just a little bit, just so you know. They've got like a little windsock on it. It's also going to protect it if you've got some abrasiveness on your pants. Brushing up against that finish on the air cleaner, it might be important for you to cover that thing up while you ride, as your leg might brush up against that and rub the finish off. So I'm taking these potholes on purpose and handling it really well. I can feel it just a tad in my lower back, so that's just something to be aware of. You know, I've ridden the Sport Glide earlier, and that bike definitely, I think, took these potholes and these bumpy roads a little bit better than the Fat Boy. But still, I mean, it's minimal. Definitely not something to worry about. I will say, these mirrors being on the little short arm, I can see out of them just fine. I'm pretty broad-shouldered, and there's not a visibility problem. If you get the longer arms on the mirrors, you might have a little better visibility out of them, so that's something to consider as well. But I mean, as far as Harley mirrors go, these are just fine. Yeah, so you get a low RPM here. That sound is really nice. So this bike does not have cruise control, something that maybe I thought that you'd like to have on a bike like this. For Harley controls, they're all the standard controls. You've got the blinkers here on the left and the right. Really standard. You got your horn and your trip toggle on the left, and your high and low beams on the left as well. And then on the right, you got on and off switch, and then your ignition start. Very standard for Harley-Davidson. And another standard thing for Harley-Davidson is having the gauge here on the tank, which, you know, it's a gorgeous tank. The gauge looks really nice in that chrome finish, but you got to look down. You got to look down to see your speed, and to me, that's no bueno. But that's standard for Harley, so something you got to consider when you're looking at motorcycles. Is this bike gonna, when I check my speed or anything like that, doesn't have tach? I mean, you could get it does have the tachometer digitally underneath the speed, but I've really got to dip my head just to see that. So I'm kind of it's, I mean, feels a little useless that I'd have to drop my head to look at my tachometer. But again, that's just standard Harley. All right, what we're gonna do at the next stop, we're gonna do the balance test. How well I can just stand this bike up as we're rolling to a stop and not put my feet down. I can tell you, I mean, this bike does not feel like a 700-pound bike. It feels, the weight distribution, how they've done it here on the Fat Boy, it's really nice. All right, we're gonna approach this light slowly. See how well balanced this bike is. Oh my gosh, yeah. Very nice. All right, so, you know, for a bike that has floorboards on it, kind of gives you that touring feel. I'm a little surprised that it doesn't come standard with cruise control, and especially for a bike that's 20 grand. I would like to see the cruise control standard and the RDRS, all of your safety features come standard too. So if Harley's paying attention, hey, throw that in. We're looking at premium bikes here. I don't want to pay a premium just for my paint job. And you know, they like to talk about the attention to detail, which I love. You know, I love that about Harley-Davidson motorcycles, their attention to the fine little details on this bike. They talk about pass 1, pass 2, pass 3, you know, all the little things you see when you first look at it, and then when you look at it again, and then after you buy one and you're really getting into the nitty-gritty of detailing your bike, seeing all the little details. But I want to see some of that attention to detail being paid to my safety and also to features, right? I love the fact that this bike looks gorgeous. Make it so that it's a functional thing for me to go out and tour on too. But guys, we're coming to the end of the ride here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. And if I can't, I'm sure that there'll be someone out there that will be happy to do so. Guys, if you find this video helpful, if you liked it, make sure you hit that thumbs up down there, which is the like button. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Guys, if you are out there riding, please be safe. Be kind to one another. My name is Eric. I'm that one guy, and I am out.